If you have bare plasterboard walls, you can save yourself a ton of money by painting it yourself. Today, I will be painting this plasterboard wall and I will walk you through the steps on how to do that. It's easy, you can do this. Painting is a great skill to learn and a relatively easy one. There are several tips that I'm going to share with you, so look out for these throughout the video. I'd highly recommend on your paint tins mark where you used the paint. It's also a good idea to write the name of the colour on the tin as well as what strength it is if you have used a quarter or half strength. Labels will fade or get paint on them and will eventually become unreadable. You're going to need something to stir the paint. I use a flat piece of timber. You'll also need a paintbrush, a roller and tray. If painting an entire wall, an extension pole is invaluable. A flat-headed screwdriver, handy just to get the lid off the tin of paint. Now painters do have a lid removing tool which is a flat end and it goes bendy down up. That's the technical talk for it, not really, but just a normal screwdriver will do the job. Now you'll notice this lid is dusty. Before you take the lid off a tin of paint, always make sure that if there's any dust or bits around the lid, remove that first because you don't want it contaminating the tin of paint. Okay, so this one's quite dusty, you'll see. So I've got a little rag here, give it a bit of a clean off and then blow. Okay, so that's all clean. Now, when you're using a screwdriver to remove the lid off the paint tin, lift it gradually. You don't want to damage the lid. So if you have a look at the tin of paint here, so just lift it slowly and keep turning the tin. Because if you force it in one area, you'll damage the lid and it won't reseal, or it's less likely to reseal properly. So you go around the edge a little bit, especially as an older tin of paint like this is. Just keep working your way around the lid. It's starting to come free now. So over time the paint dries and then you've got your lid off nice and safely. Now if you have a look in this tin here, I'll tip it to the side, you'll see that I'll even put my finger in the surface. You'll see it's separated to a certain extent, the clear liquid on top. Nothing wrong with this paint. All it'll need is a good stir to mix it up. And once you give it a thorough mix, then it's ready to use. Of course, you never paint from the main paint source, the paint tin. You always paint from a separate container. So you need a little small bucket with handles handy. If it gets contaminated, there's a small amount of paint that's been contaminated rather than the whole quantity of paint. So to clean up at the end of the job, once you've finished painting, to clean your paintbrush, you're going to need some water to wash your paintbrush out if it's a water-based paint. If it is an oil-based paint, then you're going to need some mineral terps. So make sure you've got the terps purchased beforehand so that you can clean your paintbrush up. So one thing to do before you start painting is to soak your paintbrush in water. If it's a water-based paint, soak it in water for about half an hour. This moisturizes the bristles and you'll get a much better workability with the brush. Of course, if you're using an oil-based paint, you're going to need to soak your paintbrush in mineral terps. So, of course, when you've taken your brush out of the water, you need to make sure you get all of the water out of the brush. So basically shake it, give it a good flick like that. Even after you've done that, sometimes the water can be sitting in this compacted part here, and it can sometimes run down here a little bit later on. So you've really got to give the paintbrush a really good flick. And sometimes what I do is after I've finished flicking the paintbrush, I'll just brush it out on a dry, clean surface just to get the excess moisture out of the brush, because you don't want it diluting the paint when you're painting it on the wall. So I'm just going to give this a few more flicks. So you see the nice flexibility of the bristles. Okay, let's start painting. So I'm going to pour some of this undercoat into this painting container. Okay. Important to keep the tin nice and clean. Alright, there we go.
Phillips out back with a hammer in hand, turning old walls into something grand. Dust on his boots, plans in his head, tools all around and a vision ahead. Lisa's inside where the screens are aglow, cutting the clips so the story flows.
So whenever you're painting, put enough paint on your brush. Don't be stingy with the paint on your brush, and then spread the paint where it's to go and then finish it off. So spread it, make sure you cover all the areas that need to be covered, and then just feather it off like nice and gently like that. I quite like painting. You can think about other things as you're going along, and it makes a big difference. It can change the whole feel of a room once you've got the paint on.
Coffee in hand, headphones on tight, making magic on the timeline late at night. Oh, we fix it and film it, building dreams from the ground. Phillips making sawdust while Lisa cuts the sound.
So I've got the paintbrush here. If I'm going to use it again in a short amount of time, I'll just keep it glad wrapped because it stops it from drying out and I don't have to wash it up. So we've got to the rollering stage now.
From the workshop to the edit suite, we're making something real and sweet. Yeah, we fix it and film it, so come along and see this little YouTube world of ours where we make reality. Phil's measuring twice to cut once clean, working out a way to build their dream. Patching, painting, leveling floor.
When you first use a roller, it takes a little bit to soak up the paint into the roller. And the wall will suck up a bit of paint more so on the first coat of undercoat because it's not been sealed yet.
Always one job away from starting 10 more. Lisa's trimming clips like a movie pro, adding the beats to the hammer blow.
So again, like when you're painting with a paintbrush, spread the paint and then come back and lightly finish off with the roller. That way you don't leave any ridges along the edge, along this edge here.
Thumbnails popping, the title's tied, gonna post that upload later tonight. Oh, we fix it and film it.
So top coat on the plasterboard wall now, and then that room will be finished. Give it a bit of a stir, a little bit of separation, not much. Okay, so I'll keep my brush in Glad Wrap, stop it from drying out, save me washing it. Still nice and moist with the paint. Okay, a little bit in the pot for the cutting in and Pour it from this side, a little bit in the roller tray. So the first thing for me to do is cut in around the wall and the ceiling. A whole lot easier cutting in the wall into the ceiling than the other way around. Get right into the corner with the tips of the brush. Make sure you have plenty of paint at the tip of the brush. I keep about a 45-degree angle personally. I don't know what painters do in general, but they might all have their own little technique. There we go, almost done. At least for the first coat anyway.
Building dreams from the ground. Phillips making sawdust while Lisa cuts the sound. From the workshop to the edit suite, we're making something real and sweet. Yeah, we fix it and film it. So come along and see this little YouTube world of ours where we make reality. Igniting a flame across the nations for DIY home transformations. With every job done, a story's told, turning everyday life into solid gold. Oh, we fix it and film it. That's the life we choose. Philip builds the future, and Lisa makes the view. So just hit that like and stick around. There's always a fix to be found. Yeah, we fix it and film it. So just you wait and see. This little YouTube channel is a home for you and me.
Roll the paint on, covers nicely. Make sure it's nice and smooth. And then a light roll over where the two rollers joined. Okay, so I find a screwdriver, flat-ended screwdriver, handy tool to take the lid off the paint. Okay, start again. Pickles come to oversee. Do you mind, Pickles? Pickle?
Hello, darling.